Hello and welcome to my channel, Lifestyle and Fashion Tea. And on this channel, we talk about everything from fashion to reaction. This month, for Black History Month, we are talking about Lena Horne today. I hope you have been checking out my other Black History videos. But we got to get into Miss Horne, Lena Horne. Before I start, can we give the horn a round of applause? Okay. Calm down. Let's get into it. Lena Mary Calhoun Horne was an American singer, actress, dancer, and civil rights activist. Horne's career spanned more than 70 years and covered film, television, and theater. Horne joined the chorus of the Cotton Club at the age of 16 and became a nightclub performer before moving on to Hollywood and Broadway. A groundbreaking African American performer, Horne advocated for civil rights and took part in the March on Washington in August 1963. Later, she returned to her roots as a nightclub performer and continued to work on television while releasing well-received recorded albums. She announced her retirement in March of 1989. But the next year, she starred in a one-woman show called Lena Horne, The Lady and Her Music, which ran for more than 300 performances on Broadway. She then toured the country in the show, earning numerous awards and accolades. Horne continued recording and performing sporadically in the 1990s, retiring from the public eye in 2000. Early life. Lena Horne was born in Bedford-Stuyvesant, New York, to Edwin and Edna Horne on June 30th, 1917. Both sides of her family were biracial African Americans. She belonged to the well-educated upper stratum of Black New Yorkers at the time. She lived the first 5 years of her life in a brownstone at 519 Macon Street. Horne's father, Edwin Fletcher, known as Teddy, a one-time owner of a hotel and restaurant, was a gambler. Teddy left the home when Lena was just 3 years old, and he moved to an upper-class African-American community in the district of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her mother, Edna Louise Scottman, was an actress with a Black theater troupe and traveled extensively. Edna's maternal grandmother, Amelia Louise Ashton, was from modern Senegal. Horne had a paternal great-grandmother who was a Blackfoot Indian. Horne was raised mainly by her paternal grandparents, Cora Calhoun and Edwin Horne. When Horne was just 5 years old, she was sent to live in Georgia for several years. She traveled with her mother from 1927 to 1929. She lived with her uncle Frank S. Horne, who was the dean of students at Fort Valley Junior Industrial Institute. From Fort Valley, southwest of Macon, Horne briefly moved to Atlanta with her mother. They returned to New York when Horne was 12 years old. After which, Horne attended St. Peter Clover School in Brooklyn. Horne then attended an all-girls school, an all-girls public high school in Brooklyn, which later became Boys and Girls High School. She dropped out at the age of 16. At the age of 18, she moved to her father's home in Pittsburgh, stayed in the City Hall's district for almost 5 years, learning music from native Pittsburghers such as Billy Strayhorn and Billy Eckstine, among others. Personal life. Horne married Louis Jordan Jones, a political operative, in January of 1937. In 1937, on December 21st, they had a daughter, Gail. She passed away in the year of 2024. They also had a son, Edwin Jones, and he passed away in the year of 1970 due to kidney disease. Horne and Jones separated in 1940 and divorced in 1944. Horne's second marriage was to Lena Hayton. Hayton was a music director and one of the premier musical conductors and arrangers at MGM. In December 1947 in Paris, they separated in the early 1960s, but never divorced. He died in 1971. In her As Told autobiography, Lena Horne recounts the enormous pressure she and her husband faced as an interracial couple. She later admitted in an interview in Ebony magazine that she had married Hayton to advance her career and cross the color barrier in show business, but learned to love him very much. Horne had long-time affairs with heavyweight champion Joe Louis, musician and actor Artie Shaw, actor Orson Welles, and director Vincente Minnelli. Horne also had a long and close relationship with Billy Strayhorn, whom she said she would have married if he had been heterosexual. He was also an important mentor to her. From 1946 to 1972, Horne resided in St. Albans, Queens, New York, enclave of prosperous African Americans, where she counted among her neighbors Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, and other jazz luminaries. In the 1980s, Lena moved into the 5th floor of the Valney A Hotel, which now has turned into a co-op at 23rd East 74th Street. Lena was known for many quotes. One is, "It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it." During the anti-communism hearings in the U.S. Congress in the 1950s, Horne was among hundreds of entertainers blacklisted because of political views and social activism. Career. In the fall of 1933, Horne joined the chorus line of the Cotton Club. In the spring of 1934, she had a featured role in the Cotton Club Paradise, starring Adelaide Hall, another famous jazz singer who took Lena under her wing. Lena made her first screen appearance as a dancer in the musical short Cab Calloway's Jitterbug Party. 1935, a few years later, Horne joined Noble Sissie's Orchestra, with which she toured and whom she made her first records. After she separated from her husband, Horne toured with band leader Charlie Barnett in 1940 to 1941, but disliked the travel and left the band to work at the Cafe Society in New York. She replaced Dinah Shore as the featured vocalist on NBC's popular jazz series, The Chamber Music Society of Lower Basin Street. Horne left the show after only 6 months when she was hired by former Cafe Trocadero manager Felix Young to perform at the Cotton Club to do a Cotton Club style review on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. By this time, Horne had already had 2 low-budget movies to her credit, a 2 real short subject Boogie Woogie Dream, 1941. Horne made her Hollywood nightclub debut at Felix Young's Little Troc on the Sunset Strip in January of 1942. She signed to MGM in November of 1944. She was featured in an episode of the popular radio series Suspense, a fictional nightclub singer with a large speaking role. In 1945 and 1946, she sang with Billy Eckstine's orchestra. Her debut at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in Panama Hattie, 1942, she performed the title song, Stormy Weather. While on loan from MGM, she appeared in several musicals, including Cabin in the Sky, 1943, with an entirely black cast. She was otherwise not featured leading roles due to her race, and the fact that her films were required to be re-edited for showing in cities where theaters would not show films with black performers. As a result, most of Horne's film's appearances were standalone sequences that had no bearing on the rest of the film. One number from Cabin in the Sky was cut before release because it was considered too suggestive by the censors. It was Horne singing Ain't It the Truth while taking a bubble bath. This scene and song are featured in the film That's Entertainment 3, 1994, which also featured commentary from Horne on why the scene was deleted prior to the film's release. Horne was the first African American to serve on the Screen Actors Guild Board of Directors. In Ziegfeld Follies, 1946, she performed the song Love. Horne lobbied for the role of Julie Laverne in MGM's version of Showboat, but lost the role to Ava Gardner, a friend in real life. Gardner was required to practice singing as Horne, using Horne's recordings, which offended them both. Ultimately, Ava's voice was overdubbed by actress Annette Waring. Changes direction. Horne became disenchanted with Hollywood and increasingly focused on her nightclub career. She made 2 major appearances for MGM during the 1950s, Duchess of Idaho and the musical Meet Me in Las Vegas, 1956. She said she was tired of being typecast as a Negro who stands against a pillar just singing a song. I quote, "I did that 20 times too often." She was blacklisted during the 1950s for her affiliation with the communists in the 1940s, back groups. She would subsequently disavow communism. She returned to the screen playing Claire Quintana, a madam in a brothel who marries Richard Widmark in the film Death of a Gunfighter, 1969, her first dramatic role with no reference to color. She later appeared on the scene 2 more times in The Wiz as Glinda the Witch in 1978 and co-hosting That's Entertainment 3 in 1994, in which she related her unkind treatment by the studio. After leaving Hollywood, Horne established herself as one of the premier nightclub performers of the post-war era. She headlined at clubs and hotels throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe, including the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, the Coconut Grove in Los Angeles, and the Waldorf Astoria in New York. In 1957, a live album entitled Lena Horne at the Waldorf Astoria became the biggest selling record by a female artist in the history of the RCA Victor. In 1958, Horne became the first African American woman to be nominated for a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical for her part in the Calypso musical Jamaica. From the 1950s through 1960s, Horne was a staple of TV variety shows, appearing multiple times on Perry Como's Kraft Music Hall, The Ed Sullivan, The Dean Martin Show, and The Bell Telephone Hour, and many others, including The Judy Garland Show. Horne starred in her own U.S. television special in 1969. Monsanto Night presents Lena Horne. In this decade, the artist Pete Hawley painted her portrait for RCA Victor, capturing the mood of her performance. In 1970, she co-starred with Harry Belafonte in the hour-long Harry and Lena special for ABC, and in 1973, she co-starred with Tony Bennett in Tony and Lena Horne. Bennett and Horne subsequently toured the U.S. and UK in a show together. Death. Lena Horne died of congestive heart failure at age 92 on May 9th, 2010. Her funeral took place at the St. Ignatius Loyola Church on Park Avenue in New York, where she had been a member. Thousands gathered. Her remains were cremated. Wow. Lena Horne, you were amazing. There's so much that I could not fit into this for the works that you have done. Rest in power, my sweet lady. Thank you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. To my supporters, I love you all. Happy Black History Month.